Good afternoon. I am happy to be contributing to AFPM's annual conference representing Solomon Associates. As you can see, my discussion topic today is about sustainability. So I'd like to begin with a definition of sustainability. Sustainability means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In addition to natural resources, we also need social and economic resources. Therefore, sustainability is made up of three pillars: the economy, society, and the environment. These three pillars are commonly referred to as profit, people, and planet. Since 1980, for more than 40 years, Solomon has benchmarked the performance of the refining and petrochemical sectors, including through all the business cycles and dramatic changes over these decades. As this slide shows, along the way, Solomon has also changed to meet the needs of our study clients and address key topics facing the industry by developing methodologies, metrics, and information in our studies. We have grown to become a trusted advisor, delivering actionable insights that are vital to the industry. As an example, in 2009, Solomon was called upon by our refining clients in Europe to help them navigate the complex data collection and reporting requirements of the EU emissions trading system, which is a key tool used to reduce GHG emissions. There were many voices with diverse views in these discussions: the European Commission, the many think tank advisors to the Commission, and of course our clients, the refining and petrochemical plant operators in the European Union. Among this diversity of views and voices, all participants shared the common view that Solomon was the only advisor that could be trusted to develop a fair and reliable methodology for assessing carbon emissions from the industry. That method is called EU CWT, Carbon Weighted Ton, which is a derivative of Solomon's CEI metric, which stands for Carbon Emissions Index. The EU CWT metric and other derivative metrics are now widely accepted for regulatory use in multiple countries. My name is Charlie Reith, and I am the CEO of Solomon Associates, and I look forward to sharing with you some of Solomon's views on the topic of sustainability in the industry. Solomon's Carbon Intensity Index was developed using our industry standard Energy Intensity Index methodology, modified for carbon emissions, of course. CEI is scientifically and statistically sound. It is quite complex as a result. The CEI derivatives were developed by Solomon to simplify the metric for use in various regulatory and voluntary reporting situations beginning in the EU. These CEI derivatives provide the transparency necessary to ensure consistency and a means of verification in these different reporting scenarios. Since then, versions of CEI have been developed by Solomon that are now used in several countries, including the US, Canada, Korea, and India. We all know too well that our clients feel the pressure of the sustainability movement, change that many say is unprecedented in the history of the energy industry. Net zero GHG emissions by 2050 goal setting will have a wide range of impacts on refinery survivability. We're already seeing evidence of that today. Technology developments, some more promising than others, could provide an economically viable way forward for many refineries. Commodity businesses and trade-exposed industries will need to be creative to continue to attract investor support to meet the carbon emissions reduction targets. Solomon has the data to show how our clients in more than 70 countries have reacted to other large change events over the years. We know the characteristics and behaviors of those that thrive with change, and we also see the characteristics and behaviors of those that do not adapt and are divested or close. In short, there are winners and there are losers. The winners never lose sight of the fundamentals that lie underneath what I would call the fancy graphics and digital bling. Economic thinking, continuous improvement, and a relentless focus on the fundamentals are crucial. And naturally, shareholders expect to receive a favorable return on their investment in their companies. At the same token, plant managers are expected to deliver a good net cash margin each and every year, no matter what. This is an illustration of the Solomon KPI roadmap that we developed for refining and petrochemicals. We first introduced this graphic a few years ago, and I know that it is a bit complicated. Today, I'm just using it to illustrate a point. And that point is that refining and petrochemical manufacturing are complex businesses with complex facilities. Many different measures and metrics are needed to operate safely and profitably. And at Solomon, we know how all this fits together and how to measure it. And in our opinion, the measures that companies use must focus on the three sustainability pillars of profit, people, and the environment. And Solomon's metric set and this KPI roadmap are designed for this purpose. When Solomon analyzes net cash margin in refineries, we see that transportation fuels are the primary product from refineries worldwide, even those that tout being crude to chemicals facilities. Profitable refiners strive to upgrade the raw material to refined products that have a value greater than that of the raw material cost. The petrochemical products and the transportation fuel products will have typically a value greater than the raw material cost. The refining products valued less than the average raw material cost include things like propane, butane, and LPG, light and medium naphtha, resid and asphalt, fuel-grade petroleum coke, and sulfur. A typical distribution curve representing the percent of refined products valued less than the average raw material cost is shown in this slide. CO2 equivalent emissions are now added to this list of refined products valued less than the average raw material cost when green burdens are included. Cash operating expenses. Refineries and other commodity businesses constantly strive for the lowest production costs in order to survive and thrive. We all know this. This slide shows that refineries in different countries and regions feel different cost pressures, and it's common knowledge that the U.S. has lower energy costs than either Europe or countries in the Asia-Pacific region, as shown in these three bar charts. As I will show in the next slide, these cost differences do indeed drive decisions. So let's take a look at the energy performance of the US and Canadian facilities. These charts, using data from our most recent studies, are showing the relative energy intensity index, EII, of US and Canadian refineries and olefin crackers compared with EII best global peers. Compared to the world's best EII plants, the US is clearly lagging in energy efficiency. The obvious reason is economics. On a relative basis, the US has low energy cost. However, today the industry cannot just consider purely energy economics. The value of closing these gaps is significant in terms of both dollars as well as carbon emissions reductions. For instance, the estimated carbon reduction potential for US and Canadian refineries is 49 million metric tons per year if this gap is closed. Olefin plant reductions would add another 12 million metric tons per year reduction. And on a global basis, the estimated carbon emissions reduction potential related to closing these EII gaps in these two sectors is over 200 million metric tons per year. To put this in perspective, the US EPA website claims that 1 million tons of CO2 is equivalent to the carbon sequestered by 1.3 acres of US forests in 1 year. Closing the energy efficiency gap in US refineries and olefin plants is equivalent to 80 million acres of US forests, or about twice the land area of Oklahoma. And the cost savings are there too. Based on energy savings alone, closing the energy efficiency gap in US and Canadian refineries is equivalent to $3.7 billion per year. And for US olefin crackers would be an additional $1 billion per year. And on a global basis, we estimate the energy savings potential for both of these sectors combined to be $20 billion per year. But, as I will explain in a minute, even these savings are understated, as the savings potential is much greater than the energy savings alone. The best operators are pulling two levers to become more energy efficient and in turn reduce carbon emissions. These are energy consumption and fuel mix. Note that the energy mix determines the carbon emissions factors utilized in the calculation of Solomon's CEI metric for each unique operating facility. As I mentioned, energy efficiency is worth more than the fuel savings alone. There are cost savings in many other areas, as this slide illustrates. This is because there is a strong correlation between energy intensity and overall non-energy operating costs. So why is this? The main reason is that reducing EII reduces the size of utility systems. This in turn reduces maintenance work and cost. Fewer maintenance work hours result, and in fact, lower site work hours overall. This supports that we need to think beyond simple energy savings economics for energy projects. We need to do something different. We need to change the way we think about these projects. And we need to start thinking about energy when we plan our maintenance work strategy. We need to look at the whole picture. The fuel, steam, and power systems need to be considered holistically with an end state in mind. For instance, replacing one steam turbine doesn't save enough water to eliminate an entire cooling tower, but replacing several over time just might. It is also important to think about overall site economics. For instance, if water is scarce or expensive, energy project economics may become even more favorable. The key point here is that energy efficiency improvements can reduce OpEx well beyond the fuel savings alone. So you have to ask yourself, what would your total savings be to improve energy efficiency to world's best levels? And Solomon believes one way to guarantee a sustainable return is to integrate energy efficiency into your maintenance and business planning cycles. Robust asset life cycle management is critical. And further, Solomon suggests that plants use the site maintenance plan as the plan that drives investment timing. And consider all economic drivers in your analysis. Non-traditional factors have value today in this equation. Carbon emissions, ESG factors, and public sentiment all have real or perceived value. The total opportunity value is much, much larger than the sum of its parts. So moving on to energy mix. So natural gas is often referred to as a bridge fuel to help companies meet their carbon emissions reduction targets. This table is showing the carbon emissions factors for several fuels relative to that of natural gas. CO2 emissions from burning natural gas is approximately half the emissions associated with burning coal for the equivalent amounts of energy produced. So how has the industry leveraged the abundance of natural gas in the United States? This slide shows the change in fuel mix between the years 2000 and 2018 for two refining peer groups, the U.S. Pacesetter Group and the U.S. Top CEI Peer Group, shown in the blue and green bars respectively. As this shows, refineries in the U.S. have clearly benefited from the increased availability of low-cost natural gas and have replaced a significant amount of refinery-produced gas with purchased natural gas. These companies have leveraged this advantage, and the AFPM member companies represented by these high-performing peer groups on the graph truly should be congratulated on this noteworthy achievement. And proactive operators also continue to look ahead and today explore more and more new technologies. Electrification and electrolytic hydrogen are expected to economically compete with alternatives like natural gas. Not immediately, of course, but possibly within the next 10 years. Carbon capture, utilization and storage pilot projects, CCUS, are underway in several locations. Significant technical and cost uncertainties still exist for CCUS in refinery applications. And certainly, CCUS facilities will add significantly to overall refinery CapEx and OpEx in the future. Beyond this, numerous refineries have expanded biofuel blending in existing storage tanks, while others have been shut down and converted into terminals. Refiners are also planning to produce sustainable fuels like biodiesel and bioaviation fuel by repurposing existing refinery infrastructure. So as you can see from the last few slides and graphs, that Solomon has an amazing amount of data. We also have the experienced staff to interpret it and to provide valuable insights to our study participants. And you can be assured that Solomon is addressing these industry changes in our studies so we can continue to provide clients with actionable insights into the potential for all of these technologies and their respective benefits. And beyond that, data, information, and insights related to sustainability and sustainability reporting. Investors today want companies to provide more than good financial returns. They want that, plus they also want lower environmental impacts. The investment community has been very vocal about this, and investors like BlackRock are demanding its portfolio companies adopt long-term climate action plans. Naturally, investors and stakeholders alike want transparency in reporting of sustainability measures from companies. But there is a growing belief that sustainability reporting is unreliable, inconsistent, and does not reflect the factors that really matter to the overall economic performance of the company. In many cases, the data are selective and the quality is poor. This can put companies who are more diligent in their reporting actually at a disadvantage when being compared with others who are not as diligent or as complete. And beyond that, the use of various voluntary standards has resulted in data and information that is neither comprehensive or comparable. The fill-in-the-blanks methodologies are simply inconsistent. Scope 1, 2, and 3 reporting is not apples to apples because not all methods use full well-to-market life cycle assessments. Consequently, for all these reasons, the investment community is pushing for a single reporting framework. And Solomon has resources and tools designed to help companies tackle these sustainability challenges. As I've mentioned, Solomon's benchmarking studies provide all the appropriate measures and metrics that focus on the fundamentals that relate to profits. This includes sound, scientifically based GHG metrics like CEI. For purposes of ESG reporting, there are additional measures such as water consumption and EHS that are covered within the scope of Solomon studies, and others that are not and go beyond the scope of our studies. However, as noted earlier in my talk, Solomon will continue to expand our studies to collect more data that relate to sustainability topics and technologies, such as electrification, hydrogen, and so on. So I'd like to say a few words about Solomon's CEI metric. Companies have voiced to Solomon more loudly recently that they would like to see a standardized metric across the hydrocarbon value chain for measuring GHG emissions performance in the same way that EII has become the universally accepted measure for energy efficiency. Solomon has developed the CEI metric exactly for this purpose, as the standard for measuring carbon emissions efficiency performance, Until recently, though, this metric has not received a great deal of attention. What you may not know is that this metric is now part of all of Solomon's benchmarking studies across the value chain, ranging from upstream through downstream. And as always, we are open to discussing with clients how we can continue to improve the use of CEI and its adoption across the petroleum value chain. And beyond metrics, today we're using a variety of tools to help companies estimate the carbon footprint of their portfolios. In particular, we are using 3 open source models developed by US and Canadian universities. These models are commonly referred to as OPG, Prelim, and OPEM. These models are used to estimate Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions that, used together, represent full well-to-market life cycle assessments. These models are widely accepted by the global community and are embedded in various fuel standards in the US and in Canada. They are not black box models, and they provide the credibility and transparency that are expected today by investors and other stakeholders alike. We know that many energy companies have adopted the use of these models too, using a combination of public and proprietary data to estimate their own carbon footprint and look for opportunities to reduce emissions. One of the ongoing struggles is sourcing good quality data from both public and private sources. Solomon is actively collaborating with these universities and clients alike to improve and expand these models to incorporate hydrogen and other new technologies and advances to make these tools even more relevant and useful. So these are some examples of the types of collaborations that are needed in today's world. In addition, last year, Solomon acquired a highly detailed and developed world oil refining logistics and demand model from Ensis Energy. This model, developed over the last 3 decades, is used to help operators and other stakeholders to evaluate the complexities of the global refining sector in one integrated system. The world model is highly flexible with the ability to model short, medium, and long-term forecasts. It is commonly used for focused analysis on fuels quality regulations, regional crude logistics and trade, and the potential impacts of SDGs in carbon regime initiatives or new process technology developments. And finally, I'd like to announce that we have already begun at Solomon to refresh and update our original environmental study from 2008 to make it more relevant today, to address the relevant ESG reporting needs, for example. And to that end, we want to collaborate with our clients from the industry to ensure that we create the most useful study to serve all your needs. In conclusion, no one currently has all the answers, and there are many diverse views in these energy transition and sustainability discussions. The industry is evolving, and the companies that do not lose sight of the fundamentals will not only survive in these difficult economic conditions, they will thrive and become even stronger. We have witnessed this many, many times over the decades of studying the petroleum industry. And among this diversity, Solomon will once again fill the role of an advisor that can be trusted to develop methodologies and tools to help clients address all the key aspects of sustainability: environment, people, and profit in ways that are credible and protects the confidential information of all our clients. So with that, I'd like to thank you all in the audience and thank AFPM for the opportunity to share these thoughts today. And I certainly hope that you found them insightful indeed.